English news
and a Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome to the East-West Show. Jack Chow, your host on the East-West Show. That is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers, the Belgian royal family, designated brand of jewelry that has 400 years in history and handforged by 10 generations of the number one craftsmen on earth. Together, they stand for a testimony to the spectacular and a share of the royal glory. Back to the show. Today with me is my good friend, a wonderful young woman. I would say a really hard to find talent in the area of sociology study, specialized in the Asian American study. That is Dr. Minh Jo, Professor Jo. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack. Thank
All
you.
right. I'm so glad Professor Jo of UCLA is here with me. Don't you think that's elevated my position? Yeah, all right.
Well, thank you.
Very good. It is really my point of interest or my area of interest to spend some time on the, I can't call it myself, on my part, a sociologist study. I'm talking about sociologist interest, all right? Especially when you enlarge the subject, though, you would probably come across a subject that you called Asian Americans, or to be more specific, of Chinese Americans, right? In that study, in that area, the number one human being, individual, is this lovely young woman, Dr. Professor Jo. Once again, I have to express my warm welcome to you.
Thank you. I'm humbled. And it's an honor to be here.
So am I.
To be in conversation with you.
Yeah, I know you're busy. Your teaching schedule is so tied up. And it was not without some effort did I get the chance to get her here. So congratulations to me. To make it better for my audience, though, my audience are fed of seeing lots of number one human beings, right? From Congress members of the United States, to big leaders from China, to average Joe in the shoes of the United States, of our community. They got this opportunity to see everybody. However, in the area of research, especially with the study of Asian Americans, it is their first time to see such a high-ranking researcher.
Again, it's an honor, and I'm humbled to be here, and also to be in company with your distinguished guests.
Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your generosity. And make it better for my audience, would you please give us some little background introduction, including yourself as a professor, or your area of study as the subject today? Either way, please.
Sure. Again, my name is Minh Jo. I am Professor of Sociology and Asian American Studies at UCLA. I also hold the Walter and Shelley Wang Endowed Chair in U.S.-China Relations and Communications.
I see.
As well as a Director of Asia Pacific Center. So I teach sociology and Asian American studies. You may ask, what is sociology and what is Asian American studies?
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So sociology is a very broad discipline, and I enjoy it very much. And I think a lot of my students also enjoy doing sociology or studying sociology once they are in a sociology class.
All right.
Because we study people, we study relationships, and we study institutions. So we study the relationship between people, and institutions, and
human and human activities.
Right. We study humans, and
all right.
relationships.
Okay,
Very
okay, good.
important. And then Asian American Studies. Again, Asian American Studies is an interdisciplinary field. Even in sociology, we do interdisciplinary stuff. For example, for me, I do sociology of Asian America, sociology of international migration, and also sociology of race and ethnicity. So there are some subfields. So in Asian American Studies, it's a new field that was kind of a product of political movement by Asian Americans themselves, as well as Asian Americans in struggle with other racial ethnic minorities. So it came out in the 1960s, the civil rights movement, and we call the Asian American movement.
It's quite a new area of study.
Yeah, before 1965, when you go into sociology, when you go on to college, right, you could hardly find a class that is specialized on Asian America. But now, in many campuses, you will find classes on Asian American history, on Asian American community, and then also with Asian American content. So that's a big change. So we are still, as an Asian Americanist, so I'm wearing two hats. One is a sociologist, one is an Asian Americanist. As an Asian Americanist, we are still trying to fight for a space in the academia, and then also claim our legitimate space in the academia and in the discipline. Yeah.
Thank you for this introduction, and I really believe that it is the first time for me. It serves as an eye-opener to take another look at the Asian study in the big subject of and sociology, right? I know that from a humanity point of view, it is important not to miss that big part, right?
Yeah.
However, to us, for example, myself though, being an Asian American myself, to be more precise, being a Chinese American myself though, what is the actual significance for me to get into that area, or at least the understanding of that area, please?
Right. Well, so your question is twofold. One is, as an Asian American or as a Chinese American in particular, why am I going into Asian American studies or Chinese Americans? What's there for me? So as an individual, right? So Asian American studies really provide a knowledge base for you to connect to your own history as American of Asian descent, right? And then because Asian Americans, their experience or their lived experience in America is unique as well as common to other Americans. So the uniqueness is where you learn, and then you could also contribute to the knowledge base, right? One is, you learn about where you are from, what your ancestors do to make America make ourselves as part of America, as the society, as history.
Become part of it.
Right. Become part of it, and making a contribution, and also know that you are part of it, but not, not being excluded.
You're right.
And then as a scholarly field of intellectual inquiry, there are things in Asian America that could shed light on our understanding of human being, human society, right? So to understand different groups' experience, then you come to a more holistic understanding of humans.
All right, very good. From another depth though, if we go a little deeper, we are a nation that we did not abolish the Exclusion Acts all the acts until 1964. And this new study was given birth to 1965. As such a pretty young area of study, though, how do the American mainstream societies look at it? Same as us? See the importance, or not the same as us?
Well, it's a process of making yourself known and claiming your space in the intellectual area or in the intellectual community. So now, compared to the 1960s, I guess we have, I believe we have gone a long way. And then now at the universities, people would know what Asian American Studies is about. And then students would take our classes and then get benefited from it. So in a way, well, we have other ethnic studies classes and programs too, like African American Studies, Native American Studies, Latina Studies too, because they are all part of American society, part of American history. So even though students may not from these, ethnic minority background, but being a member of the nation, then you learn from it too, right? Whereas in the past, probably before you and me going into college, one, Asian Americans or members of the racial ethnic communities, they were largely excluded from access to higher education. Even if they have access, then they don't feel that they belong, right? And now with these programs in place, then the environment has changed, right?
The awareness is brought up, right? Being I'm a part of it, and I shall become a part of it, and I want to be an important part of it. I can do a better job, and is related to myself, right? And then, all right, my dear friends, today is one of the very rare chances that I sit down with a well-renowned professor of UCLA in the sociology study, typically in the area of Asian American research. That's Dr. Professor Minh Jo. Let's take a short moment out. We come back to continue from another layer, please. Stay with us.
Everything we have continued to work on it now. My name is Paul James. I host English News.
And the Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, my lovely audience. Welcome back to the show. My dear brothers and sisters, I would say it's a special kind of a discussion. It is, not philosophical, but I call it practical in this case. We are having this opportunity to sit down with a well-renowned professor at UCLA, Dr. Minh Jo, Professor Minh Jo, on Asian American study in the sociology research or study department. Once again, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack.
Very good. And we thank you very much for your introduction of yourself, your research group, your research department, and the importance of a sociology study, especially important of Asian American study as sociology part of it, right? Now, to speak of the mainstream interest or concern of their support to your study, to your area though, I would say the best thing to indicate is money. In other words, do you or do you not have enough funds to continue your study? I want to find an indication from the other end, for the money end.
Yeah, well, when we are doing research in the humanities and social sciences, we are always short of funding because we are considered soft science,
yeah.
right?
Soft science.
Right, soft, not hard.
What a beautiful name. What a beautiful name.
Yeah, we are soft, but we are hard
Oh,
too.
but hard,
yeah.
yes.
And it's very, because the research findings is to enhance understanding, enhance knowledge. However, the social impact of it, you may not see it immediate. Like you put so much money to invest in it, and then you get this much in outcome, right? So we don't measure that way because we train students. We do research to enhance public understanding. And then the students thrive in the labor market. And that, these investment outcome is not to a particular investor, but to many, many investors, right? Including ourselves, right? And then also when we do research, it's very challenging to convince people to give you money to do projects, right? Because doing projects, doing research, and even having education programs requires money. But we are trying. We have good projects, and our ideas and projects resonate in the community and in the people who are interested.
Yeah, you're right.
In joining our mission to train students to produce more well-rounded knowledge in the humanities.
I
and
do
social
agree with
science.
you with your definition that we are doing the soft study. However, we're not that soft. It all depends on what kind of a time span you're talking about, right? What you're doing, what you're researching, is not the kind of immediate cashable benefit, right? However, in the long run, though, when you talk about a whole generation educated with it, you really look at a different another 100 years, something like that, right?
Right.
All right.
Yeah, and also we are training our next generation of workers in the labor market and in society. So say, for example, we need medical doctors, we need engineers, we need scientists. But these scientists, these people who are trained in hard science, they are also in need of skills, soft skills, right? So the soft skill training is where we can contribute so that you are not like train a machine, doing the hard thing. But you also, because humans, they have the hard part and then the soft part of their skill set.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So we are contributing to that. But sometimes it's very challenging for us to apply for funding or to get funding support because the knowledge that we are producing, the impact of it is not immediately seen.
Yeah, speaking of the impact, though, even the hardcore, immediate, cashable benefit will not be recognized without the study.
Right.
For example, now you come across people, you ask them, how much do you know about the Chinese coolies? And the coolies, or you may ask them, who built the Pan American Railroad? Right? Who did the explosion job of the Sierra Madre Mountain to make the train accessible from the east all the way to the west? So without where you research, you can't guess the answer. The answer might be wrong. And when a wrong answer is told to the young people, to the posterity, we always carry the wrong information. That's the importance I see. Am I right?
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah. So this kind of knowledge, needs to be discover and reclaim, right? That part of the history and also the contribution of Chinese Americans and Asian Americans, and for that matter, other racial minority groups. When they are marginalized in society, their voices, their histories are usually buried.
Exactly,
So for us now, we are in the position to really recover and also pass this knowledge in the next generation, so that the next generation are equipped with this knowledge, and then they can do their science much better when they have, when they have these human connections, right?
Very good, very good. I'm proud of you, Doctor, because the more we talk, the more I'm in it, right? And plus the fact that I did some homework and I read one of your greatest book, Chinatown, right? And of course, I did not have the time, have the luxury to go line by line. What I did see or did read, it was a concise version of what you wrote about Chinatown, right? So in your study of Chinatown, what did you find in general as a character? Of course, we have Italian town. We have little Saigons, right? We have little Tokyo. We have everything little elsewhere, right? What do you find as anything extra in Chinatown rather than you find in other small towns?
Yeah. Now that is a good connection to what we just discussed. So Chinatown was my dissertation. So when I did my PhD, you need to do a dissertation research, write a dissertation, write a PhD dissertation. So I decided to study Chinatown, not because I saw a so-called potential of making a big discovery, right? I did not think about it that way. I'm just curious about Chinatown.
And by the way, I did
York.
notice there is a part of that book mentioned at the time when you pick up the subject, though, the subject was low level.
Right.
Nobody even paid attention to what you did, right?
So, because when I first arrived in America, the next day my relatives and friends took me to, that was in New York, to Manhattan's Chinatown. And then I was really intrigued by Chinatown, in the middle of a very advanced industrial modern city.
That's true.
With skyscrapers, and here you have this little ethnic enclave that have existed for over 100 years. And people are doing
The contrast is so sharp, right?
A lot of people are still doing the things that they were doing. It appears to me like in a movie set. Like I was from China. I did not even see it in China. China has changing. But the little enclave seems to be frozen in time. So I was very intrigued about, what made Chinatown tick and why Chinatown persisted as it does until today. And then when I decided on a dissertation project, I was thinking, well, maybe I should try to engage with my question of why Chinatown has persisted for so long, and in this very modern city, and also is in the most expensive
Must be some
land
kind of
Manhattan.
survival,
right,
in a very tedious way.
Right, and then at that time, that topic was not very well received by my own advisor. They said, "Oh, Chinatown, there is already conclusions. It's a poor immigrant ghetto, and immigrants when they, when they first arrive, they have to go through that, and then it would allow them to pass on. So Chinatown itself is a ghetto. But for me, I said it couldn't be a ghetto, because if it is a ghetto, then you will see intergenerational reproduction of poverty and the
It may look like ghetto.
Right.
But it functioned like something else, right?
Yeah. So when I looked into it, I found that there is this ethnic economy that is run by the Chinese and also benefited the Chinese, even though the mainstream scholarly inquiry of the ethnic enclave or ethnic economy that the ethnic enclave is ghettoized, is disadvantaged.
All right, let's take a pause here. We really want to go deeper into the Chinatown study.
Sure.
Thank God that with that's a great book you might want to go find out yourself. And it's available on Amazon. And we'll be right back, my dear friends.
Everything we continue to work on now. My name is Paul James. I host English news here in
and a Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences, my dear brother, sister, my dear fellow Americans. Welcome back to the discussion today. As a matter of fact, it's not only a discussion, it's a classroom. I'm with Professor Minh Jo, my private professor. She's giving me lectures on the big subject of sociology in the area of Asian American study. And in the Asian American studies, we focus to the Chinese American study. And in the Chinese American study, we started with her great book, one of her great books, Chinatown, right? And in which we have lots of discoveries. We're talking one by one. So back to Professor Cho, that I have a question. I have no doubt that Chinatown once played an important role in the U.S. economy. For example, it's restaurant business, right? It's a laundry business, right? It's a garment business, right? Those areas, right? All right. So how did they function at that time when they had very little investment, very little money on hand?
Well, Chinatown started as an ethnic enclave for self-protection under Chinese exclusion. So when the country was excluding Chinese legally, then the Chinese have to depend on one another for survival. So in the earlier days, it was a place where Chinese immigrants and Chinese Americans, they rely on each other for survival, and they build an ethnic enclave economy. And that economy is very crucial. Two things. One is to sustain the community, right? Because people need jobs, people need to put food on the table, and the economy create jobs for themselves, and so it's for economic survival. And the other function of it that is very important, that is for a community to thrive, you have to have an economic base. So that economy not only offer means of jobs, means of entrepreneurship, and also, means of survival, but also provide basis for social organization, right? Without that, without a thriving ethnic economy, the community would not be resourceful. So for that, Chinatown actually has been resourceful. However, the mainstream society look at Chinatown, the perception is negative, is stereotyped as ghetto. But for me, I feel that Chinatown is not necessarily a trap, but rather it's a mobility engine to move people up and onto the mainstream society through generations. Not necessarily the first generation. So when you see the first generation, they may not speak English, they may still hang on to their old ways. But the second generation, they are able to move up and
uplifting themselves. Uplifting themselves.
So that's why the perception is Chinatown is not trapping immigrants, but it's an engine to move people up and out, right? So it's a different, so that's my contribution. So my perception is Chinatown is not a trap. It is a mobility engine. So at that time, when I published my book, I was criticized as being the advocate for capitalism, the advocate for capitalist exploitation.
I saw that part.
Right?
I saw that part, yes.
But for me, I feel that, yes, if you are looking from that perspective, There is exploitation, of course. There are low wages. There are, people operate businesses in the gray area. You have that. But that is not unique to Chinatown. That's also happening in the secondary labor market of the mainstream economy, right? So it's not just Chinatown. But the fact is, within the ethnic enclave, when you have the ethnic economy, people are, now here I'm talking sociology again, they are interrelated. So they are related to one another, not just as capitalists and workers with this pure, bloody, exploitative relationship, but also they relate with one another perhaps as tongxiang, country folks, perhaps as church members, perhaps as community members. So on different levels, their relationship are different.
Got tightened.
Right. So from these relationship, they build their community, they strengthen their community, they make their community more resourceful.
However, of course, had the mainstream society been friendly with the merge of Chinatown, or have they been journalist mind enough to recognize the contributions that those old-timers did for the U.S. economy?
Well, not without effort, right? So now there are more and more books, more and more stories like the stories you are doing that reach out to the mainstream audience. So the mainstream audience are much better informed today than before. But still not enough.
Yes, they are.
Right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, still not enough. Still, Chinatown, many people still have some stereotypical image of it. But then, we have to keep trying to pass the message on to, the knowledge onto American society, to have American society to accept Chinatown as an integral part of the American society. And also Chinatown is not static, it's not unchanging, it's changing, right? Even though poor people, low-income families concentrate in Chinatown, but, they are not as isolated because with their business, the middle class co-ethnics, they will come, right? So there is a lot of this interconnectedness between the middle class and the working class co-ethnic people. So that's what I talk a lot about, the social impact of it. And then now with the changing characteristics of Chinese immigration, a lot of Chinese immigrants, they don't go to Chinatown for several reasons. One is culture, right? Chinatown used to be concentrated by old-timers from my hometown, from Guangdong province, and also from a few counties in Guangdong province. And now the Chinese immigrants are coming from all over China, and they are from different socioeconomic backgrounds.
Let us stay with the meander. Let us meander on the old Chinatown a little bit. All right. I'm still thinking about, at that very moment though, I mentioned in the very beginning about the turning point of 1964 when we abolished the exclusion laws. So, did you see the difference between before and after sharply, or you slowly felt it in the study?
No, it's quite sharp. Just now you talk about, when we look at just Chinese American history per se, right? So the turning point, a big turning point is 1943 when Congress repealed the Chinese Exclusion Act. But even then, Chinese American community is still relatively small. And the law rendered discrimination illegal. However, the society is still largely discriminated against Chinese. So that's one. And then, so the community gradually grow. But until 1965, when Congress passed the Immigration Reform Act, that ushered in, and also China's economic reform in 1979, and then that ushered in a huge wave of Chinese immigration. In the 1980s, when you and I came to the U.S., most of the Chinese immigrants were still from the original sending communities in Guangdong province. So most of them are still Cantonese, except for the student population, right? Because students are potential immigrants. So I am one of the few Cantonese who came in the 1980s and who actually go to school all the way up and become an academia. Everybody, stop and then, run their business or work. Very few pursue the academia path. But then, with the Chinese students coming in, and then also later on the Chinese immigrants, they are from all over, and most of them, like over half of them, have a college degree.
Let's take a short moment out. We really have to move on to, because it looks at she and I, we need more than one show. Right, stay with us. We'll be right back, please.
Everything we have continued to work on it now. My name is Paul James. I host English News here in the morning.
And a Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, my lovely audience. Welcome back to the East-West Show. Jack Chow, your host on the East-West Show, that is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers, the Belgian royal family designated brand of jewelry with 400 years of glorious history and hand-forged by 10 generations of #1 craftsmen on the global earth. Together, they stand for a testimony to the spectacular and a share of the royal glory. Back to the show. Today with my dear friend, Professor Minh Jo of UCLA of sociology study, and typically specialized in the Asian American study, we seem to have a good time. Especially me, I seem to have gone back to class to sit there once again as a student to listen to these old stories, but it opens a new field of eyes, new vision, right? And we're not quite done with each of these categories, but we got to move on to the last one. If I take a little more serious look into the time span, correct me if I'm wrong though, starting from the point of the Chinese reform though, the immigrants came into the United States have been totally different. Unlike you and me, I came here with $40. You came here with $50. Well, you're better off than I am. That's why you're a professor. I'm not.
More.
Yeah, $10 make a huge difference, right? Good.
Right.
Anyway, so do you think Chinatown, the old Chinatown, and the new Chinatown, or new Chinese community, Chinese American community, still function as Chinatown? What's your take?
Yeah, so Chinatown has changed. And now when we talk about the new Chinatowns, a lot of the new Chinatowns are actually located not in a central city, but in a suburb. So we call them Chinese ethnoburbs. Ethnoburbs.
Ethnoburb?
Ethnoburbs.
Oh, ethno.
Ethnoburbs.
Ethno.
So these suburban ethnic community. So these suburban ethnic community, the people there, they are also very diverse, right? But they are disproportionately middle class immigrants and professionals, and a lot of them, even though they live there, but they get jobs in the mainstream economy, and they are pretty socially and culturally integrated, but they still live in the greater Chinese community. So in a way, the the Chinese community, they still play the function that the larger society may not have. That is to provide them with some sort of symbolic and emotional support, and also a cultural support in which they can find comfort in their lifestyle, in their life. As American society is a culturally diverse society, so being Chinese actually is being American. So they are very different. But there are some class, big class difference. Residents in Chinatown are still working class, but residents in the new and ethnic Chinese suburban communities, they are mostly middle class homeowners, right? So socioeconomically speaking, there is a big difference. And in terms of their cultural skill, job skill, and that, there is also a big difference. Like a lot of people in the Chinese suburban community or new Chinatown, so to speak, even though they converse in Chinese with one another, but they are fluent in Chinese, in English. They are fluent bilingual, right? They can fluently move between different worlds, different cultural worlds in America. So that is.
And also, speaking of the new immigrants, though, I see another group of people, especially young people or rich people. So when the rich people come in numbers or big great numbers with cash, buying real estate, buying houses, even without asking a bank, here's the
cash.
1 million, or here's 2 million, or let me have that mansion, or something like that. Or even the young people coming here, well, they are driving Mercedes, no, forget Mercedes, Lamborghinis, right?
Yeah.
Or even up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In restaurants, you see them kind of drinking beers in a crazy way, with a shiploads of food on table,
And
acting
wasteful.
like loafers, not educated people. If you stop one and ask them, they're students of UCLA, right?
Yeah.
So what do I see? Do I see a typical case, or do I see a representation of the nowadays or the next generation of Chinese American? Please.
Well,
I'm very sorry I put it that way, but
I see them as a new group of Chinese students that is very different from
you and
our
I.
group. Yeah,
Okay,
our
let's
group
do it.
who
Yeah.
came to the U.S. to study in the 1980s. Very different. It's a different generation, and this generation was also the benefactor of China's economic reform. Right, so their family get rich or whatnot. So I see them as Chinese students coming here, to study. Now, whether they would eventually immigrate, they would eventually immigrate into the United States and then try to get adapted to American life.
They are becoming the future Asian Americans.
Well, some of them will, but I believe a lot of them would return to China. So if they return to China, it's not our problem, right? So if they come here, they would face the challenges of assimilating and integrating into American society. Because if you are doing what you are doing the Chinese way, the rich Chinese way, it would cause a lot of conflict with the Asian American community and Chinese American community. So for them, if they decide to stay, you have to do what the Romans do, right? So you have to integrate and make a contribution to the society by integrating, adapting, and also you could remake culture, right? You could remake the lifestyle, but not in a way that is upper class.
Well, probably we need to make a schedule for another discussion, because I'm barely done with either categories of all the above four. For this one, I would like to, if I may please, I'm asking you for help though, and we probably have to schedule another time for where we're stopping now, right?
Sure.
My concern, my worry is that the older generation of the Chinese Chinatown residents, they came from a family normally poor, crowded with so many kids. They started here. When they started to see anything better than back home though, they feel satisfied. So that's why they fought for a tedious, unrelenting struggle for better and better and better until they made themselves better. Now, what you see, the new immigrants, I mean the young people, they are the only sons and daughters of the family. They were raised in honey jars, right?
Yeah, protected.
When they are here with the cash, with Lamborghinis, with everything, do you think it can stand hardship? All right, now, if they can or they cannot going back or not going back though, I'm talking about give it 100 years when the old generations died out already. And then when you're talking about Asian Americans, they are the standing force, the representing force of Asian Americans, Chinese Americans. That is my worry.
Yeah, but I'm more optimistic. I don't think they would represent future Asian America because they are very selective group. So if they decide to stay, they would have to face the challenge. And I believe that they could, right? They could, and they could learn the American way.
Now that we go back to your sociology study, right? Sociology is not nationalism, right?
No,
right now,
no.
when they go back to China, it's China's problem. All right.
Yeah.
After all, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
We're over time, my dear friends, and I'm having a very, very extra good time. And when we will schedule another show for you, I promise. So thank you for watching, my dear friends. And Dr. Cho, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right.